Welcome to Talking Tech Journeys, hosted by me, Ben Whiteley of BPM Tech. We're delighted to bring you season 1 of Talking Tech Journeys. The aim is clear, to bring you some of the most engaging and respected figures within tech and transformation, providing a snapshot of their journeys to share knowledge, ideas and insights on all things tech and transformation. Sit back, relax and enjoy the journey. Hi, welcome to Talking Tech Journey Season 1. I'm Ben Whiteley, delighted to be joined by Pete Bailey, Digital Manager at MyDentist UK. Really looking forward to this. Thanks very much for joining, Pete.
Yeah, thanks. Glad to be here.
Good. Before we sort of get into your tech journey, just a quick sort of introduction, really. I mean, who is Pete Bailey outside of work?
So I guess most recently, Pete Bailey is a new dad. So I've got 3 kids now, live just outside of Warwick, and used to be very sporty, but now my whole life seems to have been taken over by the kids' activities, and really enjoying it. So.
Yeah, I feel your pain and pleasure. I'm the same. So dad of 3, and yeah, a recent newborn in January. So all good fun. Lots of sleepless nights.
Indeed, yeah.
Good stuff. Well, let's not dwell too much on that then. And so ultimately, look, let's take you back to how, why, when did you sort of first become interested in technology, innovation, and health tech?
So I guess started really at university. So I originally went to Loughborough because I was absolutely certain I was going to be a professional footballer, as most people, as most people's most young lads' ambition is. And actually, when I got to Loughborough, I didn't get in any of the teams, so ended up essentially trying to explore what new passions and interests might be. And met a really great group of friends at university through kind of my course and across halls and stuff. Through which got really interested in, I guess, hardware technology in particular. So we started playing around with different devices, even the kind of early stages of what virtual reality might look like, including some of the, I guess, what you could do with different sensors and those kind of things as a part of the engineering team and computer science teams at the university. Which sort of just kept building really over the years. I got more and more interested in looking at different models of innovation. I was really fortunate while I was at Loughborough to travel to, I think it was 7 or 8 different countries looking at entrepreneurship ecosystems while I was there. And particularly looking at startups all over the world and startup ecosystems. So I was fortunate to spend time with startups in Finland, looking at how to colonize Mars, right through to startups in South Africa that were trying to, I guess, bring together all of the different communities post-apartheid. And I guess the thing that I found most interesting, or I guess it was just that constant intellectual learning of completely new environments and finding out how technology can radically change, I guess, how we live and how we operate, and then particularly within healthcare. That's how the positive impact, I guess, it can have on society and the things that it can do to allow for individuals to essentially get better, more personalized access to healthcare.
Great, which I know we're going to sort of explore later in the conversation. So just picking out, I know you were involved with a couple of social enterprises whilst at university, notably sort of Fail Forward and South Africa Challenge 2012. So you're just able to sort of elaborate a bit further on what this is all about?
Yeah, so South Africa Challenge was kind of the starting point for me. So I'd been left a really small amount of money from my grandparents and when they passed away, and the instruction was go to South Africa with this money because they'd spent some time there through my granddad's career. And I felt like if I was going to go, I wanted to do something meaningful with it. So I didn't want to just go and travel. I wanted to try and bring some friends with me. And so I met through some mutual connections and networks, a group of people that had been doing some work out in South Africa. And we decided that actually it'd be a really, I guess, interesting experience to try and bring a small group of young people from different European countries, to take them out to South Africa to experience what the different cultures and attitude and business environment was like out there. The ambition of the program was, I guess, twofold, really. So the one hand was to try and make more rounded individuals, particularly from Europe. There's often this phrase, which is in Africa, which is one of the most commonly used terms in Europe. And actually, Africa is obviously an amazing amalgamation of lots of different countries and lots of different cultures and stuff. So we were really keen to kind of tackle that as one of the pieces. And then the second bit was around trying to share some of our knowledge and expertise in our particular specialisms to different business communities within South Africa, and particularly within Durban. They've got some fascinating setups there around being one of the largest ports in Africa, which make it a really, I guess, interesting environment to try and set up new businesses. And we ended up spinning out a number of different social enterprises and small businesses through that program in South Africa, including a couple that got recognized by the World Economic Forum and the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and a number of others as well while we were there. So it was amazing experience. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, like you say, there's lots of challenges, and it sounds, a good sort of cultural exchange, social responsibility type program, which is, aspiring the future leaders. And
yeah, and I think also giving you the and it's something that I'll probably come on to talk a little bit more about in detail later, giving me a kind of moral compass or operating guide that I would then later have lent on pretty much all throughout the rest of my career, really. So far, very early in it still, but yeah.
Good. And fail forward. So obviously this was something that I know we were talking just prior to recording. A lot of people don't, are quite happy and comfortable to talk about success, but maybe not so much in terms of failure and sort of lessons learned. So what was the purpose of fail forward?
I think it was it came about from Loughborough is obviously a really elite sports university, and obviously, as I mentioned at the start, I was really absolutely gunning to be footballer. that was my thing, and I thought I was going to be a goalkeeper. But and through that experience of essentially failing, right? So failing in my original career ambitions and life ambitions at those time, trying to realizing, I guess, how many other people were going through that same thing while at Loughborough, both in sport, but also in their own verticals or their own passions. And during the first couple of years at uni, I just kept watching multiple people having that same experience of they had a career ambition up to that point, which in many instances was to get to Loughborough or to get to a similar, high standard of university, which you would then I then just continued to see that through different sectors that I'd been to. So looking at it from, I saw amazing examples from like 3M, from product manufacturing, where accidentally through product development, they'd, I think there was an example around Post-it notes was one of those examples that came out from what was considered a failed product. The glue that came on the back of Post-it notes was actually a byproduct. They weren't anticipating getting to that product, but that was something that was produced off the back of it. And I've seen that example play out so many times in different pieces of software that we've produced, where we knew that we were heading in the right area or ambition, but actually it suddenly ended up being way more than we could have ever anticipated, just because we were aiming towards that end objective. We had a piece of software that we developed at MyDentist, and it cost us about £3,500 to develop. And that piece of software ended up generating, multiple millions of pounds for MyDentist. Whereas you've got other pieces of software that you've generated, and you can spend hundreds of thousands. I'm sure, Ben, you've seen examples where it's probably in the millions of pounds that you can spend even just configuring software and end up not getting much return. So it's that was really where it came from, and essentially being able to share those stories, to recognize that actually it's more about the process that you go through, the lessons that you learn as a part of it. And then how you can essentially take all those journeys and make it into the person that you become going forward.
Great. So, I mean, obviously, this is about you and your journey and experience. You've obviously been very busy during and active, in terms of social enterprise and partnerships at sort of Loughborough University. Let's sort of take you back to your first job, or first several jobs.
It probably links into that failure point again, Ben, doesn't it? So
well, you
well,
could say that.
It could be argued that way anyway. So I guess yeah, much to my kind of parents' dismay, as coming out of university, I ended up dropping out of I think it was I'm not sure exactly how many it was, somewhere 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 jobs quite quickly after university. And I think some of that came from I had a really clear view in my own mind of the type of organisation that I wanted to work in, and the things that I felt sat well with that moral compass that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And a couple of those things that stuck with me really during that period was around. It became much clearer to me as I went through the different roles about the importance of the team that you're working with, or the people around you being who you want to spend time with. And not saying that I didn't want to spend time with the others, but it just as soon as I found someone that I really just thought, wow, I could learn so much from this person, you just want to kind of stay close to that person and kind of keep gathering as much information as possible from that individual and learning as much as you can, which is kind of where my career sort of meandered after that point. So
good. So let's take you to 2015 then. You sort of worked for private healthcare provider Circle Health. I think they were possibly one of the biggest private healthcare providers at the time. Started off there as a graduate consultant, so it'd be good to understand your journey.
Yeah, sure. So at the time, actually, they were probably one of the so we were a scale-up hospital group, if that's a possible thing. So we had 3 hospitals in the UK. Went on to add an extra couple of facilities while I was there. And I think the role that was I was really fortunate to go into actually was very kind of all-encompassing. I ended up working in procurement for a period, in operations for a period. Moved into, did a lot of work within governance, and then ended up settling, I guess by design, ending up in IT basically, or in technology specifically. Yeah. We had a large outsourced contract, which I ended up taking responsibility for the group, which came with a number of different, I guess, opportunities that I wasn't really anticipating, I guess, when I went there. But I really enjoyed the work that they were doing, and the different pieces of tech and the difference that it could make to patients, basically, right through from really basic stuff like text message updates to patients and things like that, whereas it had previously all been in letters, right through to we did augmented reality surgeries that were live streamed for educational purposes for other consultants. So it felt really, I guess, fortunate to see both the core, I guess, operations of an IT team, but then also to see those edge cases that are really high-end innovation, bleeding edge at the edge of the technology spectrum.
Yeah. So you sort of the graduate consultant sort of gave you that good solid foundation, and obviously then led you to, like, say, operational governance, partnership relationships. You know, you said you talked about management of outsource IT, process change.
Yeah.
I mean, what was that sort of was there a time where you thought you knew what path, what journey? Or was it just something that you sort of just embraced and ran with the challenges?
I think, to be honest, it was probably that intellectual curiosity that was just driving the interest areas, and where I guess I was looking for gaps within the company's leadership structure and areas where I felt like I could add a lot of value. And the company had some unbelievable people in it, to the point that I was talking about earlier. Really senior guys that had come over from Argos, from Tesco, from obviously some that have got considerable healthcare experience as well. And so the gap, as I perceived it within the core group, was around technology. And so I started to pursue that area more vigorously internally to look at where I could, I guess, build a career for myself within the organization, but because I felt like I could add a lot of value within that space and provide, I guess, cost efficiencies as well to the group that I knew would provide value to patients. So we did a number of really large cost-saving projects while I was there, which were all focused around how we could drive more value for patients, which I know sounds sounds almost two opposite things, like doing cost saving to drive value for patients, but ultimately every penny that you're spending that's not directly on patient care, that isn't providing, I guess, value to that core patient base is ultimately waste within the system. And so we were really driving hard at those kind of suppliers that were supporting back office function, supporting ancillary functions to try and I felt like I felt very it felt important, I guess, as a part of what you were doing to try and help the patients to get better value, both from the NHS side, but also the private side as well.
And like you said, a couple of times sort of, sits well with the values and your moral compass, as you put it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the thing that makes it all worth it, and the thing that I did a little bit of time in consulting and stuff before going into Circle, and I found that the really big difference for me was that I was able to go right from talking at hypothetical levels or strategies on what we wanted to achieve, and then go right down to actually having a conversation with a patient in one of our waiting rooms. And that for me was the thing that was adding so much value. I used to just sit in the waiting rooms in the hospitals when I was working during the day and just listen to the conversations that were happening there on the shop floor. And that was, for me, that's the thing that was driving me then, because I was listening to the nurses talking to the patients and the admin teams talking to the patients, or the admin teams talking to each other, and trying to understand how I could help them basically through the work that I was doing. And I guess the appreciation that you got both off the staff and off the patients when you were making those, what were actually small technical changes, but had really big impacts actually, like on the ground within the hospitals. And that was the thing that felt, it really sat well with me, I guess, as a part of that period of my career.
Well, often, you're not going to get more direct, immediate feedback than, like I say, speaking to the patients and the key sort of stakeholders who, whether it be clinicians or others.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like some of those conversations were extremely difficult over the years, where clinicians, if you think about how fast technology's been moving, particularly over the last, I mean, it seems to have accelerated even in the last year, but like during my career while I was at Circle, it felt like the consumer-based technologies like providers like Google and Facebook and those, that they had set an expectation with consumers, which then employees in the workspace or clinicians in the workspace were anticipating the technology would do the same things. And those two, there was often misalignments, I guess, in what the expectation of what we could do technically and what the customers and employees wanted. So we were constantly trying to, I guess, realign that and make clinicians feel the huge value that they brought both to patients and to the group at the time. So
good. And then obviously you 2019 joined MyDentist, so which you're still there now. So you're able just to sort of, firstly, who are MyDentist and what sort of couple of roles have you done since 2019, Pete?
Yeah, and I think it's important to note as well, like the reason that I moved over to MyDentist was because of what I was alluding to earlier around the people. So I'd been working really closely with some of the senior leadership team at Circle, and I'd really enjoyed and felt like I learned a lot from particularly the CEO at the time, Steve Melton, and the operations director, Will Smith. And both of them moved over to MyDentist, and then I followed them over about a year later, maybe six months to a year later, and I just really felt like I'd learned so much from them, and felt like there was more there to go after. So MyDentist is the UK's largest provider of dental care. So we've got about 550 locations across the country, and we're now a split group, so something around 50-50 NHS and private work. And I think the thing that's kind of setting MyDentist apart at the moment within the marketplace is we've got this real driven focus towards the affordable private part of the marketplace. So that's not considering NHS specifically or private specifically, just affordable private. Like if you're looking to come in for a checkup, then that's the kind of space where we're operating, and we're able to then, through the facilities that we have, go right up to that premium end of care, but also provide just the base level, so the needs, all the wants of the individuals. And through some of the programs and projects that I'm involved in now, I'm really fortunate, I guess, to be investing millions and millions of pounds in new facilities across the country to try and improve access to and to I guess change how it feels to go into a dental practice. Historically, certainly my experience growing up was a semi-detached house in a residential area was my experience of a dentist.
Yeah.
And so when you come into our facilities, a number of our new facilities now, they're kind of purpose-built medical facilities, and it feels like a really great setting basically to have care, and somewhere that you feel confident and safe coming in to have that treatment. So I think that's the ambition going forward, is to keep growing that space. And obviously my particular vertical is within that kind of digital and technology space, and how we introduce scalable technologies into the group to benefit and to aid that strategic statement basically.
Yeah, so you touched on your remit briefly there. So all about disruptive technology. I mean, how far can you go with this? Are you able to give any examples of, you've been there since 2019 and in specific?
Yeah, definitely. So so I guess when you think about these roles, like sometimes there's all the what are considered, I guess, more sexy parts of the technology space. So in some of the premium ends we've been operating in, we've been doing remote supervision pilots, which is like a first of type with Microsoft nationally, to allow for one dentist to remote supervise another dentist in another location. That's kind of at the premium end, and we've been rolling out intraoral scanners at one of the fastest rates, both in Europe and also probably comparable to some of the companies in the States. And so these scanners essentially allow you to have a full 3D render of the inside of your mouth, and then send all the information off to labs to produce whatever you need: crowns, bridges, dentures, any of the other aligner treatments. And so I guess it's these kind of foundational technologies that combine 3D printing, 3D renders, the scanning technologies, artificial intelligence for aligners. Like there's a number of those different technology stacks that come into those core tech that we've been bringing into the group.
I know you sort of touched on this as well, but in terms of obviously, disruptive technology projects, there's probably quite a potential for sort of risks. I mean, how do you sort of weigh up and decide on the sort of viable options and ultimately bring these ideas to market?
I think it's a really interesting balance, because whenever we approach new vendors, new technologies, we're really trying to set the standards within the dental market for not just the dental market, actually, for the healthcare market around how some of these suppliers operate. So at the heart of everything we're doing, it's the security, patient experience, and patient safety, basically. And then all of the other elements that come out sort of drop out from that point onwards. We tend to be very selective in the type of areas where we're willing to be bleeding edge. So we describe bleeding edge as anything where it's I guess right on that edge of innovation, very new, and we'll be very tailored in the approach that we'll take internally, making sure that we're working with highly experienced clinicians, making sure that we're operating in sites that are really used, and with teams that are really used to using those type of technologies. Right through to then we'll try and fast follow on more mature technology stacks. So look to other similar sectors. So you don't always have to just grab everything just from healthcare. Like we look across to retail, we'll look across to lots of other different sectors, the different countries as well, actually, to bring in some of those technologies that are more established where it's appropriate into the marketplace.
Yeah, good. I mean, that sort of leads us on nicely. You've touched on your travels and obviously, your passion for healthcare technology and innovation, coupled with the overseas travel, work, studies across the globe. Sort of keen to hear your thoughts and hear any sort of specific examples how the sort of healthcare innovation technology are sort of making a difference across the globe, and how the UK and other countries can sort of learn from this.
Yeah, big question there, Ben.
Yeah.
So I think there's some amazing examples of different disruptions all over the world, and I think we as I kind of mentioned, we try and take, or my approach is to try and take the more mature technology stacks that have been well tested somewhere else when we want to follow quickly, and but we'll try and take all of those learnings cross sector. So we've looked at some. I've I've talked briefly, I think, just pre the call about a couple of examples. So I've looked at some technology in Canada, which was looking at from an EA Games spin out, which was looking at haptic feedback of operations. So it was the only time which anyone would allow me to become a dental nurse temporarily. So for 10 minutes, I became a dental nurse. I was holding all the equipment in my hands, and I was essentially supporting a dentist with procedure within someone's mouth at that point in time. And I've seen there's some fantastic pieces of tech that are both there's a company actually in the UK that's working really specifically on the dental sector as well within this space and shipping that kind of tech globally too. But if you go then cross sectors, there's also I think I've talked before about an example around artificial and so augmented reality and virtual reality, and the technology that we've brought into the group that for the first of proof of concept was from military implementations within medical facilities in the field. So we essentially looked to the military had implemented a remote supervision technology for operations, and we essentially tried to replicate that within our dental settings and adjusted it because we didn't need all of the different they needed to be able to spin up a field operation very quickly. Obviously our facilities are much more settled, so tried to bring some of those technology, I guess, to life within the group and the estate.
Good. I know you've obviously got a passion for AI, and I know you did a sort of dissertation on AI. I mean, what excites you about it? You know, what do you predict sort of the future of AI in healthcare and dentistry? Another big question for you.
Yeah. I think it's so when you think about AI, there's lots of people that are now started using the word AI, even though they're not talking about AI, they're talking about totally different areas of technology that have been around for a long time. And AI is essentially, in my view, it's a category of technology now, and underneath that you've got loads of different verticals or different types of AI that could deliver different things. So the most prominent of those at the moment is kind of these generative AI conversations. So the things that have been talked about widely around ChatGPT and a number of the other text-based logic or updates. And I can't claim to be experts in all of these spaces because they move so fast. But I think the thing that excites me about it is when you look at some of these technologies, the speed at which they're coming to market now. The challenge for people that are operating in my type of role is to try and keep abreast of these type of technologies and to try and understand the ones where it's hype and the ones where there's some sort of real basis for use within, I guess, commercial settings. There's lots of research-based settings that can be a lot of value at the moment, but so if you take a good example that's been talked about quite a lot in the news, you've got stuff like augmented reality glasses from Microsoft and a number of the other vendors in the marketplace, and we have dipped in a couple of times to have a look at the glasses to try and understand where is the tech at, is it ready for commercialization, and then you look at it and you go, it's probably not quite there for commercial use, probably good in training instances, but probably not for day-to-day operational use at the moment for us, but it might be for other sectors depending on what kind of user cases you have. And I think it's the focus that I've been having is to try and focus on areas where we think that you can get return from those investments. And again, not getting too lost in it could be amazing, but actually, is it now? And can we keep our patients safe while doing so? And can we keep our investors safe as well, like as a part of it, to make sure that we're not generating unnecessary risk into both MyDentist, but also into our patient base. And I think we take our responsibility, I guess, within the marketplace really seriously around this area as well, because a number of vendors will then quote to say, you know, that they're working with MyDentist, and so we're really careful about making sure that if someone's working with us, we'll do everything that we can to try and vet them to the highest level that we possibly can. And our IT director is, you know, really stringent around this, and we take a really hard line to make sure that we are doing as much due diligence as possible on the individual vendors. And I don't think that anyone can claim to be perfect in these kind of spaces, and you can't fully protect an organization from cybersecurity, etc. But we're very much taking that responsibility and, I guess, reputation that we have in the market very seriously around it, to design standards, I guess, for the marketplace. So.
Well, actually, it's always evolving, isn't it? And there's always going to be, the next new shiny thing, but also, that sort of element of risk. And you touched on it earlier. It's just that striking that balance, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's one of the managers that I was referring to earlier. He always talks about it in terms of batting averages. So
right, yeah.
When you're in an organisation, you're never going to get all the decisions you make right. But the importance is making sure that your batting average stays at a good level through your career, and hopefully keeps building over your career as you get more experience. And I've taken that very literally, and so will. Occasionally I'll I don't want to say take a punt, but like take a bit more of a risk on an area, knowing that I've taken a number of them that have been much more calculated as a part of that, keeping my batting average up while I'm there around decisions that we're making from a technology perspective.
Yeah. Well, they won't like everything going on with the England cricket team at the moment then with Bazball, but I think that's a discussion for another day.
Let's not get into that.
No, good. Well, look, many thanks for your time, Pete. It's been great talking, a lot of great insight.
Yeah, no, thanks for your time, Ben.
Yeah, it's been great. And lastly, just to our listeners, it'd be great to hear your thoughts and opinions on all things AI within the dentistry and healthcare sector. So thanks for listening. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed Talking Tech Journeys, and we'll catch you next time. Good company and colleagues in a career make the journey more rewarding. If you did enjoy, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favourite podcast platform. It really helps us reach more listeners like you. Don't forget to follow and join the Talking Tech Journeys the podcast group on LinkedIn, where you can join in debate and message us directly if you'd like to be considered as a guest, have any questions, comments, or topic suggestions. You can also email ben.whiteley@bpmtech.co.uk. Until next time, enjoy your journey.